We are now under the Sites tab, and we're going to navigate to the Forms tab on the horizontal menu. We're now going to go to Builder. This is going to be where we can edit or create new forms. So because this already has my funnels and forms and automations and everything loaded into it, we're going to see that forms are inside of this account already. If you do not have something preloaded into your account, then you may not see anything at all. What we're going to do is either add a form. We're going to create something totally from scratch. I'm also going to show you how to edit a form that already exists, as well as analyze those submissions, and then we'll talk about some of the things that you can do with forms as well. So when I click to create a new form, I'm just going to see this white box and it says Form 15. I'm going to hop over to my Options tab and we are going to give this a name. We're going to call this Test Form. We've got a couple of things in the options that are important. The first thing to know is that you have two different options when it comes to what happens when someone submits a form. We can either have them open a URL or we can give them a success message. I almost always like to have my form submissions going to another URL, but we don't technically have to set this up in the form. We could set this up in the funnel, which will be using the form. If we were to do that, we would just click on the form inside of our funnel page and just make sure that the option on Form Redirect is set to Next Step. One thing you do want to consider though when you are making these forms is what needs to happen after the form is submitted and where do I intend on using this form. If this is a form you plan on using in a couple of different places, it might be a good idea to go ahead and plug in that URL that you want someone to hit after they submit this form. That way, no matter where you use the form, that next page is always going to be the same, and you don't have to duplicate that page and add it to multiple funnels. You could always do this on an as-needed basis. You can leave it blank for now, but when you actually go to use that form, this is something I really want you to think about. If you do a success message, the page that they're on will stay the same. It will simply, instead of having that form, give that success message. So we'll take a look at that in just a minute. Your Facebook Pixel ID can be added in here, but this is only important if you don't actually intend on using these forms inside of a funnel page or on a web page. I always recommend that you use these on a page. Otherwise, you're going to have a weird looking link and it's not going to be congruent with your brand. And people are also not necessarily going to know what this form is for or have any of the other supporting content that they may need to be able to really understand what you're looking for here. If you do plug in the page Facebook Pixel ID, then you can say, what event do I want to set this up as? Is it going to be a submit application if somebody submits it, or would it be something else? Ultimately, I set up all of my Pixel information in the funnel itself, and I set up all my events as conversion API events. So because of that, I'm not going to do anything in this section. That is how I encourage you to do this as well. It's going to be a lot better tracking. It's going to be a much better user experience, and it's going to give you more accurate data. Then we have a sticky contact toggle. This means if you already have this person's info in your system, is it going to autofill? So if we turn this on, which a lot of times I will turn this on, then we will automatically have autofilled, or that user who's looking to submit the form will already have autofilled the information that you have on them. If you were asking additional questions that you've never asked them before, those answers will not be autofilled, but it'll likely be their name, their email, their phone number, things like that. So we're going to head and go turn that sticky contact toggle on. I do like to hit save form after just about everything I do. It's the same thing that I would do when I am editing funnels or sites as well. Same thing I would do for workflows, because you just never know with tech. You want to make sure that everything you do is saved in case any glitch arises, or maybe your internet goes down or something happens. We now have some styles options as well before we even get into how we are going to structure this form. So we have inline forms, and we'll look at that once we have some questions. Then we have the option to show the label. We'll be able to see that a little bit better once we start adding questions. We can change the background color here. Right now, white is fine for me. If you want to make it a transparent background so that it sits on whatever page you're using this and it takes that background color of that section or that element, you can turn this transparency toggle all the way to the bottom where you see that checkered box. That means it's going to be transparent. You can see that I no longer have that white box on my screen. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to leave it on white, but that's how you would remove the background color. We also by default have a border around the form. You may want no border. By default, it's going to be dotted or dashed, or you can do a solid line. Oftentimes I will do no border. If you do have a border, let's say we have that line and we want to make this bigger, we can increase that border. For the corner radius, this is set by default to 4. If I turn it to 0, it's going to give me those straight edges. So this is the rounding element on your corners. The higher I go, the more round they will be. And then we also have the width of the form box. So if I do 1,000, you will see that it's a much wider box. This is totally up to you. Typically, I find that the default size works okay. We also have top and bottom padding. That's going to be the space at the top and the bottom of the form. Left and right padding as well. This is personal preference. You're going to be able to decide that a little bit better once you see your fields inside the form. We also have a shadow color and decide how we want this shadow to appear if we want a shadow at all. You also can do a more transparent shadow by playing around with this transparency slider. The blur is also going to make that look a little bit more like a shadow. So if I were going to use that drop shadow, this is probably the style that I would use. I would have horizontal and vertical with a blur and a transparency. Then our spread is going to be how far this spreads out. That's a little much, so we would probably keep it something like this. I think that looks good. We also have some field style options. We are not going to look at those until we actually get fields in this form. Same thing with labels and placeholders. Agency branding. This is just going to put your agency account, if you have one, it will put that branding right there. I typically leave that off. So for now, we're going to hit save form and we're going to hop over to fields. The first thing that we will see is standard. These are the standard fields inside of the account. I just grab one and drag it over. I am going to be able to start building this form. This is full name. If I click on this field, I can decide if I want this to be required or not. So I do, in this case, want it required. Most of the time, I am going to require almost all the fields because if I'm putting a form together, I'm doing it with intention and I want to make sure I get that information. I've drug phone, I've drug email. You can see that by default, if you're using those, they are marked as required. So then we have some other things, organization, which would be business name, address, city, state, etc., website, source, date of birth, text, all of that good stuff. And then we finally have a button. I'm going to go ahead and drag that button to my form and I'm going to click on it. I now have the ability to center that button. I'm also going to make it full width. I can change that background color of my button, the border type, the size of that border. So the same thing that we did on the form itself, we can do that for the button, and my corner radius. Do I want this to be a rounded button or do I want this to be a square button? A lot of times it would depend on what you style your form as. Maybe you want to make those match. We also can do a shadow for this and say, all right, we want a drop shadow on our button if you want one. Not something I typically do, but this is how it would look. I would use those same options. The blur, the horizontal and vertical, maybe you use the spread, maybe you don't. We also have padding. So if we increase the padding, you're going to see it's going to make it larger vertically. That is the top padding. We're going to do the same thing if we use that bottom padding, left and right. You'll see that text is going to shift over. So we're not going to do any of that. It's not really necessary most of the time. Then we can decide how big do we want our button text to be? What font do we want? What color do we want that text to be? And what is the weight? So do we want it more bold? We also have subtext that we can add to that button, and we're also going to have some of those options as well. If we scroll up to the very top, this is where we actually see that button text. So I'm going to say, yes, I want this amazing offer. Submit my information. So if I wanted my subtext, I would need to go in here, change that to white so that you could see it on my button. I'm not going to do that here, but that's what it would look like. So now we're going to go ahead and just save that. What do we want to do next? We want to go back to fields, and now we have this custom fields button. When we click on custom field, you are going to see the option to add custom fields. So I'm going to go ahead and add a custom field here. We have several different options when it comes to custom field. You can also create your custom fields inside of your account settings under the custom fields area. But if you're creating a form, most of the time it's easier to just create your custom forms right here because this is where you're thinking about those questions. For almost anything that you do inside your account, it's a really good idea to, again, plan things in advance. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to go in, create exactly what you need, and make sure that it's really a good fit for what you're doing. If everything that you do is on the fly without real intention, you might end up with something decent, but it's not going to be as effective as it could be otherwise. So in our text input section, we have single line. That's where they are typing in a single line of text. If it's multi-line, typing in multiple lines. And then we have a text box list. We also have some value options such as, is this a number? Is it a phone number? Or is it a monetary value? We also have some selection options such as single dropdown. What that means is it is a dropdown and they can only choose one option. We also have a dropdown where they can select multiple options. A radio button selection, a checkbox selection, and a date picker are also some of the options. For checkbox, typically they are going to be able to select more than one. With radio select, it's just going to be one option that they select. The others are also pretty cool. We have a file upload button and a signature option as well. I use both of these inside of my accounts. The file upload is great if you're actually looking for something that user needs to give to you. We're actually going to use that right here. And then the signature can be great for anything like contracts or terms and conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and select the type of field that I want, and then we're going to see this preview. So I will say, don't rely entirely on this preview to know what it will look like. If I click on this signature right here, you're going to see that it says choose file, no file chosen. That's not actually what that signature field will look like in real life. However, you can go ahead and select some of these others and just see what that actually looks like for those types of form fields. So I'm going to go ahead and start with file upload. We're going to give this field a name. So we are going to call this upload your tattoo design ideas. Then we have to select a group. Is this going to be contact information, core contact information? No, it's not. Do we want this to go in the general info section or the additional info section? Typically, most of my custom fields will select additional info, but it does depend on what you're asking. If this is something that you really want to see on that contact really high up in that contact information section, you might want to choose contact or general info. Now we get to decide what types of files are we going to accept. We're going to select all of those types, and we're also going to allow multiple files. Now that I selected this allow multiple files, it says, what's the limit? I'm going to select 10. This is personal preference based on what you're using this for. Now we have a unique key for this field. And if I want to give it a description so that I know in the future a little bit more of what this is actually for, I can give that a description. So we would say upload of tattoo design ideas. Not that we really needed that to be able to understand what this is for, but it can be good to give those things some descriptions for you or for your team. Now that I've created that custom field, I should see it show up on this custom fields section. So I'm going to hop over to standard. Now I'm going to hop over to custom fields. If I don't see that right away, I'm going to just start typing that in. As you can see, it just took a little time for these to load. These are all of the custom fields that are added in this account. Again, if you do not have an account that's been preloaded into your system, then you might not see anything here. You can create your own. But if you have taken one of my accounts and loaded those in with the funnels, automations, workflows, forms, funnels, everything that you need, you're likely going to see some of these here. So you may want to scroll through and see if that field is already existing in your account. I know for a fact this one was not, so I am going to go ahead and make sure that I have the correct field. So now I'm just going to search for that field that I created. Now I am going to grab that field and drop it right in here. And now I can see this upload button. I'm going to click here, and I am not actually going to make this required. The reason is they may not have any files for their tattoo ideas. Now, what else would we need for this form? We might create a custom field that says, in a checkbox format, what styles of tattoo do you like? We're also going to make this additional info, and we will say black and white, color, cartoon. So maybe I'll say color realistic, color cartoon, portrait. Maybe we will say abstract or other. And we might also go ahead and do a black and white cartoon. Go ahead and drag this up here and hit save. Now I should see that custom field come up soon. We can see that field added successfully. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and then I'm going to refresh my screen, or I'm going to hop over to standard and hop back over to custom fields. So sometimes it just doesn't show up right away. If that happens, you're not going to want to add that again. Otherwise, you're going to end up with two custom fields that are made for the same thing, and you're going to have a hard time knowing which one is which when we do some of the following steps, such as reviewing the submission details, maybe in an email or a text a little bit later on. Now that I've refreshed my screen, I'm on custom fields, and I'm going to go ahead and search for that new field, and we are going to say style. What styles of tattoo do you like? I can see it here. I'm going to go ahead and I will select this one and make it required. You can see this placeholder option right here. This matters a lot more for anything that they're typing in. So I'm going to click on phone, and I'm going to say your cell phone number, because we are going to be sending out notifications through text. We want to make sure this is not a home phone. Under email, I'm going to say your primary email address. So this does not change the name of the field. This is just that placeholder. So any additional info you want to add, a lot of times it can be a great way to do it by just editing that placeholder text. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save form. Then I might add one more, and let's do a multi-line. We'll hit next. Our field name is tell me a little bit about your ideas for your tattoo design, including the imagery style. I'm actually going to have an option for that as well. Tell me a little bit about your idea for your tattoo design. Okay, that looks good. We're going to have additional info and any relevant details. Under additional preferences, again, we could add a description, but I think we're going to be fine. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then same thing, we're going to hop over to custom values and custom fields. I'm going to delete what I have in the search box, and then I am going to say design. So now we're going to save this again, and we will refresh our screen to make sure that this field is added and we don't have to add it again. I can see that this custom field is added right here at the bottom. I'm going to drag that in. I'm going to select it, and I will make this required. Finally, I am going to do what part of the body are you wanting to have tattooed? I'm going to put this right above, make this required as well. And now that I know what my questions are, what I'm actually having them fill out, yes, I'm going to change this button text. Yes, I want my free design consult. Now, if I click on one of these style buttons right here, I'm going to be able to not just do my form style, but I can do my field style. So for my field style, I can have a bigger border. I can do a line. I can select a background if I want to. I can add these styling options as well. My label, say I want to make those a little bit bigger. I'm going to increase the size. If I want to change the color, I would do that as well. Same thing for my placeholder text. Do I want to make this a little bit bigger? What color do I want to make that? So I'm not going to do gray as my background. We're going to go back to white, or maybe we'll do a very light gray like that. Now you can see that I have styled a nice form. However, I am going to change the border of this if I do a border at all. Again, I could go to 0. Now I've got no border and I just have this drop shadow. I could take away the drop shadow. Lots of different options. It does in fact depend on where you plan on using this and what your brand style is like. So I'm actually going to delete this. I'm going to delete the shadow options because we're going to be doing some of those things on the page itself. You can now see that it's got no border and it has no drop shadow. We're going to go ahead and hit save. We are going to go to options and we are going to say free tattoo design consult opt-in. Now we could put a success message here. We could say, thanks so much for opting in for the tattoo design consult. We'll reach out for next steps. However, I'm not going to use this. The reason being is that this is step 1 of many, and we actually want to send them to the next page where they're actually going to schedule that tattoo design consultation. So we want them to see that page next. We do not want them to see the success message. Even if I put a success message in this form, or even if I have a URL entered here inside of my funnel, I get to override that by saying, I just want to send them to the next step of the funnel, or I want to use the actions from my form builder. So when you see that use actions from form builder option inside of your funnels, this is what it's referring to. So make sure you're aware of that. Now let's take a look at building or editing an existing form. So if I go back to that Builder tab under Forms, I'm again going to see the list of forms that were already added in. This is a lead magnet form. This is a quote upload form. This is an unsubscribe form. So these different forms may very well be used, but maybe they won't be used in the very early stages of that lead generation process. A lot of these are for the later stages, such as referral form. We're not going to send somebody to a referral form until after they are a client. So when it comes to deciding which forms you may need to edit, sooner rather than later, or maybe create from scratch, always start from the beginning of the funnel and work your way through that customer value ladder or your sales process. So start with, what is that first form or that first initial offer? We need to make sure there is an opt-in form for that. What is that next step you'd be sending them to? We need to make sure that there's an opt-in form for that. Do you have custom questions that you need to ask somebody when they book on your calendar? We might need to have a form for that, and so on and so forth. So in this example, I'm going to be editing the calendar booking form. So we're going to click that pencil icon and hit edit. Now we are going to see the form. Right now, this is pretty basic. It's just going to have first name, last name, cell phone, and best email address. If I go over to that options tab again, sticky contact is on. I do not need to worry about the URL or the success message, because this is actually going to be selected inside of my calendar. These are the questions someone would need to fill out when they are booking on this tattoo design consultation calendar. So what I'm going to do is, just like what we did before, we're going to add a couple of custom fields. So this is one that I've already created. Do you confirm? If anything changes, you will request a reschedule date 72 hours in advance. I'm going to put required. You also can say something like, do you confirm that all decision makers will be present? There are additional options you can get someone to select at this stage, simply to make them aware of your policies. So that's the only one that we're going to add here. I do not need to add a button to this form because it's going to be connected to the calendar, and they are going to be using the calendar button options. So styles, we're going to keep it pretty simple. But that's exactly how you would edit a form. You would simply click on that pencil icon, open it up, and then decide what are the options that you want to change. What are the fields that you want to add? And then you can save that form. Now, how do you actually get a form into your funnel or into your sites? We have a couple of different ways to do that. One way is to click on Integrate Form. Once we click on Integrate Form, we can decide what type of layout we might want. This is primarily going to be if you are using these forms outside of this system. If you're using it inside of the funnels that are in this system, we already have the pop-up options. We can already make this an inline form, but you may want to use something like a sticky sidebar form or that polite slide-in form. So those are two unique options that are a little bit different, and you may consider adding those. So again, this is primarily for those that are using these forms outside of this system, but there are several ways that you can still incorporate it in the system if you want. It's just not always necessary, given that we have the forms element inside of our funnel builder, and we can just configure the form from there. So we have trigger type, show on scrolling. How much % do you want to show that? This could be if they've scrolled 50% on the page, then I want them to see this form. Maybe I want to show it after a certain number of seconds. Maybe I always want this to show. Those are your choices. Our activate options is activate on the second visit potentially, or maybe it's the first visit. Or we can have this always activated. So these options are really going to allow you to customize the experience of the forms that your viewers see, whether it's that first visit or maybe the second visit, whether they go to a certain place on the page or maybe after they've been on the page a certain amount of time. So I think these are really cool, definitely have their place within certain types of funnels, but for a lot of forms, you may be fine with just adding those forms onto the page or adding those forms into the pop-up when someone clicks on a button. We can also deactivate this after showing it a certain number of times, or once a lead is collected through that form, maybe they don't see that form again. We also have the option to never deactivate this form. So a good use case for deactivate once lead is collected is if this is a contest where people can only enter one time. That would be a great way to make sure you don't get 300 entries from the same person, even though you're only counting one of their entries in the actual contest. So if you need something a little bit more customized, this is the best way to do it. Once we make our selections, we can copy the embed code. And if I copy the embed code, it goes directly to my clipboard. I would need to use that HTML element in my funnel or my site to paste that code in. So just keep in mind, you can't just paste the code in a text box and have it show up. You have to be using an HTML editor or the HTML element inside of your funnel. We also can just copy this form link. So if we click on copy form link, again, it's copied to the clipboard. And this was if you want to just send this link to people without putting it on a page. I typically never do this. You would embed this into a page so that it would look really nice and have those options, or you would just select this form using the form elements when you are building out your funnel or your web page. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and hit done because I don't really need any of those things. If I click on integrate again, I'm going to see always show, always activated, and now I'm going to say never deactivate. Otherwise, those features would be connected to this form regardless of where I use it. So we do want to make sure we're only selecting the options that actually apply to this form and how you plan on using it. Now let's take a look at how we would actually get this form into our funnel or change some of the options of a form that is in an existing funnel. If I want to start using my forms, I am going to be on the Sites tab, and now I'm going to hop over to Funnels. We have several different funnels that are already loaded into this account. Maybe you don't have any funnels in your account yet, or maybe you have some that were pre-loaded in. If that's the case, we are going to navigate to the funnel that we want to utilize. In this case, I'm going to go to the Booking Funnels folder, and we are going to click on the 1-hour consultation booking. This is where I might utilize that calendar booking form. However, I'm not going to actually put that calendar booking form in my page. Now that I have my forms created or edited, I want to actually start using them. So how would you do that? The first thing you need to do is make sure you are on the Sites tab, and we are going to navigate to the Funnels tab on our horizontal menu. Now, if you already have funnels that are preloaded into your account, you can simply navigate to the funnel that you want to use. If you do not have any funnels in your account yet, you would want to create that funnel first. In this case, I'm going to go into this folder titled Booking Funnels, and I'm going to select the core offer funnel. We are going to use the tattoo design consultation request form on this page. So I'm going to hit edit page, and typically this is a pre-qualification survey that we might use here. In this specific scenario, we don't necessarily need a survey. We're just going to make sure that they fill out this form before they are able to book that call. If you want to use pre-qualification surveys, they're definitely a great way to make sure that you do not get people booking that are not qualified. But in this specific instance, the form is going to do the job. Once our page is loaded, we may want to go ahead and just update the page to fit our brand. So in this specific account, we've used custom values for the logos. So I could go ahead and grab that logo URL that's been uploaded to the media library. I can paste it into the custom values section where it says logo image URL, and it's going to autofill. In this scenario, I'm just going to go ahead, select that image button, and we are going to grab our logo. Double click on that logo. Now I'm going to see it in there. This is currently set with a width of 100. I'm going to change that to 200 or maybe 150 until I get a size that I like. So this logo does not have a transparent background. Even the one that does, it has white text. So we're just going to change the background color of this section. I select the green for the section, go ahead and make this black. We're going to choose the black that fits in. There we go. So I'm also going to take this and remove that margin. And we could either change this background color or we could leave it black. So we're now going to change the verbiage to please complete this short form to schedule your free tattoo design consultation. Now, if I click here, this is a survey element. So I'm going to have to delete that element. Now I'm going to click on the plus sign on the orange. The orange is our element, and I'm going to select form. Now it's going to bring up my form picker, and I'm going to select free tattoo design consult opt-in. Now I can see my form. Once my form is inside, I might decide that I want to change some of those design choices that I previously made. For instance, I could add more padding to the top right here. I could also do an inline form to make this shorter, and I also may want to change my button color. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. We will make those changes later. It's one thing to see your form inside the form builder. It's another to actually see it on a page. We want it to look really good on the page. So this is really the place where we'd be able to best decide what additional changes we want to make to that form. However, before I do that, I'm just going to make sure this form is still selected. And I see on the left-hand side the name of my form, and then I see that redirect action. So use action from form builder. We know that we did not put an action in that form builder. So if I left it like this, nothing would really happen on this form. I'm going to click on go to next step, and that is going to send them to the next step in my funnel once they go ahead and fill this out. So we are going to hit save. Then we can go back and make those additional design changes to that form if we like. The next piece of this process would ultimately be what happens once they fill out the form. Just because you have a form set up does not mean that contact will automatically go into your pipeline. It does not mean that you will automatically be notified. What will happen is that the contact will be created. The next step of using forms properly is to get the workflows set up for these forms to make sure that every action that you want to happen after somebody submits it is set up to be able to actually take place. To set up the form with my calendar, I'm going to go ahead and open my settings, and then we are going to select the appropriate calendar and the form that we edited or created to go along with that calendar. In my settings, I'm now going to navigate to my calendars tab. The first thing we want to do is make sure that we know which calendar we are going to be using on that next step in the funnel. We already have this tattoo design consultation booking calendar set up. So I'm going to click the 3-dot menu and edit this calendar. I'm now going to navigate to my confirmation tab. And you can see that in this calendar, I already selected the calendar booking form. But if I had not, then I would just go ahead and select that calendar that I created or edited from the dropdown, and that will now be connected to my calendar when someone is attempting to book. Now I'm going to go ahead and make those changes to the form, seeing how that looked in my funnel. As you can see by looking at the form, there's spacing here that was not actually present when I used it, and there's spacing below that was not present as well. The first thing that I'm going to do is go to styles, and I'm going to see my inline forms. Inline forms can be good because they actually reduce the size of your form as a whole. But when it comes to arranging these to get them exactly how you want, can be a little bit difficult to get that perfectly. We can see that it looks like it just removed my upload, which I do not want. What I could do was I could have made these drop downs instead of checkboxes. That would have worked just fine, and it would have reduced the overall size of my form. But we can try and play around with it. In order to effectively use your forms, you have to know what you want to take place after that form is actually implemented. That does not happen automatically. So what we need to do is navigate to the Automations tab and then the Workflows tab on our horizontal menu. If you already have items and workflows preloaded into your account, you might see something like this. Maybe you don't have anything. In that case, you're going to create a brand new workflow. In this case, I'm just going to show you an existing workflow that we will edit to fit the form that we created. So we are going to go into this lead generation folder, and we're going to select 1B. This is going to be for our core offer funnel. So we could go ahead and use this specific workflow to fit that form that we just edited. So the first thing that I would want to do is make sure that I rename this to fit what I'm using it for. And this is going to be free tattoo design consultation. This may be the first step of your funnel. It might be the second step. In this case, it's actually the second step. We already have a workflow that's created that is designed for this type of form. So that is why I'm just going to take what's already existing and make sure it fits my business. We're going to click on this form submitted, and we can see that we have a specific form already in here. If this is not the form that you want to use because maybe you created something totally custom, then you're going to click on the drop-down and we are going to select Tattoo Design Consult Opt-in. I'm also going to name this accordingly. That's going to make sure that we always know what's taking place in our workflows. The next step of this workflow is likely going to be create an opportunity. So this person could be in the new lead stage, or we could move them to the pre-quote survey submitted stage. If we did that, we'd probably want to change the verbiage in the pipeline to be free tattoo design consultation form submitted or design consult form submitted. Again, you want to make sure that these are really customized to fit your business, particularly if you are using something that is already preloaded into your account. So we are going to change the source to free tattoo design, and I'm going to hit save. I also might want to assign this to a user. So I'm going to click on the assign to user option, and I'm going to select the user that we would assign this to. We also want to click on every step in the workflow if it's already existing to make sure that this fits our specific offer. Free tattoo design is the tag I will give them. Then we're going to hit save as soon as that loads. The next step would be an internal notification. In this case, it's an email. We could either fill in the email address that we want to use in our custom values section, and that's if you are using a preloaded account that already has custom values set up. In this case, we are. Or we could select assigned user. That is going to deliver to the email address that's set up in that user's profile information. So in this case, we already have an email that is set up to deliver this lead outside of this system. Hi, good news, you've got a new lead interested in promo offers. So we're going to say free tattoo design. Below are the details. We've got first name, last name, email, phone. Please check if they booked the free design consultation appointment. That's what we will put in that appointment type value. Or you could delete it and type it in yourself, do the necessary follow-ups with the client. So now the question is, I had additional fields on that form that maybe I want to get in that email. So how would I do that? I'm going to hit enter and we will say the style of tattoo. And now I'm going to go to this custom values button and scroll all the way down to where it says contact, then custom field. These are the custom fields that we have created. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom. What styles of tattoo do you like? So style of tattoo is basically the label that I'm giving it. So I know what this field represents. And then this will be that person's answer. I'm also going to do uploads. I'm going to go back to custom values, contact custom fields, and upload your tattoo design ideas here. We're also going to do body part, contact custom fields, part of the body. Are you wanting tattooed? So this is how we would actually deliver custom field information to ourselves after someone submits a form. I'm going to go ahead and copy this because I'm going to need it again, and I'm going to hit save action. Same thing with our SMS notification. This is up to you. Again, we have a custom value that's set up for that to make it easier, or we could say assigned user now that we have assigned a specific user in this workflow. I know that I can just paste that. I don't have to do it again, and I'm going to hit save. I'll go ahead and hit save to make sure that everything does save. So now when someone submits that form, they are going to be assigned to a specific user. They're going to go into the pipeline. They're going to get a tag. We're going to be notified by email and text message. And then we're going to have communications that let them know what the next step is because they have not completed the final step that we want them to complete, which is to schedule that appointment. What you're going to find is that some people will schedule and some people won't. If they schedule, we have another workflow set up for that appointment booking for that specific appointment type that says, if they book, remove them from this workflow. Even if we don't remove them immediately, we still want them to get the email and text that lets them know, hey, there is another step. So again, because this is an account that's been preloaded with my different materials, we've already got it here, but we're saying congrats on starting the process for your, and this is going to say free custom tattoo design. The next step is to book a free tattoo design consultation with us today, which you can schedule here. And we're also going to put the URL of that calendar page that we've set up in our funnel in this custom value. Custom values just makes it easier, less editing, as you can see. Then we can say, all right, do we want to edit this, keep this, remove this, or do we want to keep it? As of now, we're just going to keep it. So I'm going to go ahead and save my workflow. We're going to do the same thing on our SMS notification. We're going to go ahead and edit this. That looks a little funny. Congrats on starting the process of booking your free tattoo design. The next step is to book a free tattoo design consultation with us today, which you can schedule here. Let us know if you have any questions. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Save, boom, and we are good. We also are going to send them into a follow-up nurture that starts the next day. So if they do book, they will not get anything in that nurture because of the way that we've set up that calendar workflow. When someone books on the calendar, we want to have something similar that says, who are they assigned to if we didn't do that in the calendar settings? Which stage of the pipeline did they go into? What type of communications do they get? But more importantly, what workflows will they then be removed from? So that is the process of actually taking a form and then getting the people who fill out that form to go through the series of steps that you want them to take or to get the communications that you want them to have.